Hello, Chicago. Welcome on in to another episode of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Adam Karnick here with you for the next 55 minutes and change or so. We are going to be diving through all the hottest stories in the backcourt city across the U.S. We debated it last week. I am ready to declare it this week. We have a new rivalry in town. The Sky come from behind to upset Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever in one of the biggest games in WNBA history. We will break that down. We will dissect that. We've got both baseball teams in town active tonight. Both of them had weekends that were memorable for some good things. We have a new statue in town, memorable for some bad things. We had another entry in, does this team actually know baseball, or are they all just pretending? And then the Bulls, they're in the offseason. They are starting to make some moves. Arturas Karnisovas was threatening to make moves. He delivered last week, sending Alex Caruso to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We will break down that trade and analyze the new player in town. Let's go. And hello and good evening once again, everyone. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Glad to be with you here tonight. Lots to be getting through on the show. We are going to be breaking down the Chicago Sky, the Chicago Cubs, the Chicago White Sox, the Chicago Bulls. Plus, we'll see whatever else pops up along the way on the show tonight. I actually got to spend the weekend out in River Forest on campus for the first time in a few years and had a wonderful time out there. So if there's time, I'd love to tell some stories from that as well. Lots to get through on the show tonight. Before we get too far in, though, of course, we do want to acknowledge our sponsors here at IE Sports Radio, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and, of course, Seal the Deal Wax Seals. So before we get into the show proper, let's pay some respects over to them, and then we will dive straight in to what I am now declaring the newest rivalry in Chicago sports. Let's go. IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And welcome back on into Chi-Town Weekly, everyone. Adam Karnick here with you. Glad that you are here with us. And we played that drop from our friends over at Planet Jerky. That is some delicious stuff, by the way. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you check them out, planetjerky.net, or find them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Some great stuff. Personally, I like the volcanic jalapeno. Very tasty, very good stuff there. Mention to them that you heard the ad here on Chi-Town Weekly and you get a free bag of jerky. So be sure to stop on over and get a free bag. Who doesn't like free? Who doesn't like what have you got to lose? Just mention to them that you heard the ad here on Chi-Town Weekly, and they will spot you a bag of jerky. You like spicy stuff? I would recommend the volcanic jalapeno. You want to just blow your mouth off? Well, they've got that stuff too. They got Carolina Reaper. Or if you just want to go with savory, you can go with the more traditional stuff as well. They've got it all for you. Just mention that you heard it here and they sent you, and that we sent you. Want to say shout out and hello to everybody that is listening live on the show here tonight. Jen B, Drewski, Ralph Calise, Taryn Rodriguez, everybody hanging out in the chat room with us live here on YouTube or Twitter or Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. Do want to also shout out and say hello to everybody that is listening later on in the week as a podcast, whether it's on Spreaker or iHeartRadio or over on YouTube or Gio7, wherever you get your podcasts, this show is available to you. So definitely want to shout out everybody that is listening later on in the week as a podcast as well. Thank you for being here. You can follow along. This show is available for you on social media. The station, of course, is at IE Sports Radio on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Also on Facebook. This show is available for you on Twitter as well at IESRC. You can also find us at the website at www.iesportsradio.com/Chi-Town Weekly. Or you can also follow along with me personally on Twitter. I am at Adam_Karnick. And when you go to the website, iesportsradio.com, be sure to check out the merchandise over in the shop. Some great stuff there available for you as well. All right, so to kick things off tonight, the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever played yet again. We talked about this last week, how this is starting to feel like it is becoming arguably the newest rivalry in the city, that you're starting to see the animosity build. And some of that is obviously you have the Caitlin Clark effect on a lot of teams, where there's a lot of players in the WNBA who aren't liking the how to nicely put this, the respect that Caitlin Clark is getting that maybe she hasn't quite earned in some people's estimations. So they're being a little chippy with her there. Angel Reese, and of course, has gone on record and said that, hey, look, it's not just Caitlin, I'm here too. And she is definitely she is definitely a part of it as well. 7 straight double-doubles for Angel coming into it. The Sky did get off of their losing streak before this game on Sunday. They played Dallas on Thursday and snapped a 4-game losing streak to finally get back to their winning ways. And Angel got her 7th consecutive double-double to set the new WNBA rookie record for double-doubles. Well, she continued that on Sunday. 25 points and 16 rebounds for Angel Reese in the game as the Sky came from behind yesterday. They were down by as many as 15 in the second half yesterday to win 88-87 and get their first victory over the Indiana Fever. Now, I'm ready to call this a rivalry now at this point. Last week when we talked about this, one of the things that I brought up and I mentioned was it starts to feel like a rivalry, but Chicago's got to hold up its end of the bargain. It can't be a rivalry for these two teams if Chicago just loses all the time. We talk about this a lot in football season. How we bring up how the Bears, we hate the Packers and Green Bay as Bears fans, but the luster of the rivalry really feels lost because the Bears seemingly never hold up their end of the bargain. With this win and in dramatic fashion as well, with the come from behind, the Sky finally taking the lead for good with under a minute to play in the game and holding on tight. Indiana had the last shot and it clanked off the iron. So Chicago able to hold on and win this one. Now we can call it a rivalry. Now we're ready to say that there's something going on here. And the fans see it and the fans respond to it too. As I see Larry, who's also running producer for us again tonight, hopping into the chat room. Yeah, we can call it a rivalry. Drewski, I can see it as a rivalry as well. We're having people buy into this and you're having legitimate interest in it. This was the most expensive ticket, not just in the city. This was the most expensive ticket in WNBA history to get into this game. This was the first time Caitlin Clark had come to Wintrust Arena as a member of the Fever. This is the first time that we got to see Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark in the WNBA in Chicago. And the game didn't disappoint, and the fans showed up and showed out for this one. There were the place was packed. You had just under 9,900 people in attendance for the game. Wintrust only holds 10,000, so they could only have crammed about another 120 people safely into the building. So that's absolutely a sellout. In my mind, that is a sellout for the game. And you had tickets on the secondhand market. I want to make sure that I get this number correct here on this. According to Vivid Seats, the average entry into the game yesterday was $351 to get in. To put that into perspective, I'm gonna flip over to SeatGeek right now. And we're just going to pull up now. The Cubs aren't home again. We're going to get to the Cubs in a little bit. The Cubs are on the road all this week, but let's just for grins and giggles, Cubs at Phillies or Phillies at Cubs, excuse me, next week. Yeah, you can get into that for $23. You know, you can. Let's see, for $350, how good of a seat could you get for $350? Heck, you could sit right behind home plate for less than $350 for the next Cubs home game next Tuesday night. Let's see. You can sit for $725. You can sit right on the first baseline, right behind the net, right behind the protective netting. But still, you could row 13 in the front section there at Wrigley. That's only going to run you 165. So the Sky are becoming a bigger draw than the Cubs right now. Yes, obviously some of that's Caitlin Clark. I know that's going to upset some people, but a lot of it's Angel Reese. A lot of it's Angel too. Her 8th consecutive double-double, just continuing her WNBA record. And now the Sky have 2 wins in a row. Now they're starting to build a little bit of momentum. You could sense the frustration with the team on the 4-game losing streak. I mentioned it last week when they beat Dallas on Thursday, that Thursday afternoon game, that you could just see the relief on Angel's face. She was getting interviewed post-game, and obviously they were focusing on the fact that she set a WNBA rookie record at that point, but you could just see the relief on her face that we won. We finally won. Yes, I could talk about I could talk about my personal accolades, but we won. It finally came together and we won a game, and that's the important part. Now they're on a streak. It's a baby streak, to be sure. It's just 2 in a row, but you got to start somewhere. They got 2 more games yet this month. That now their schedule slows up a little bit. They're off again now until Thursday. They've got 2 home games yet this month. They get to stay home. These are going to be doozies, though, these next couple of games for the Sky. Not easy at all. They host the Vegas Aces on Thursday night, and then Sunday afternoon, you've got the Minnesota Lynx coming to town. Not easy by any stretch of the imagination coming up here for the Chicago Sky as they are sitting dangling the precipice right now of being a playoff team. They right now, that win over Indiana actually did put Chicago in front of the Fever for a playoff spot. It actually, the Fever were coming in on a 4-game winning streak before that one. So a nice job there of ending that streak. Indiana did its first win until the first game against Chicago. They went on a nice tear there. Nice to kind of put a stop to that and vault yourselves. Obviously, it's very early. They've still got all of July, including the Olympic break. You've got all of August. You've got games into September because this is an Olympic year. You've still got, as I do math off the top of my head, and we all know how dangerous that can be, 27 games left still to go in this season. So you're roughly a third of the way through the season. So I admit it's a little early to be looking at playoff seeding, but it's nice that you're in a spot right now. You just have to maintain that. You don't need to necessarily leap anybody or do anything there. After those two games this week, next week is going to look a little, anything's going to look easier than this week for the Sky, but they've got the Dream and the Storm next week. The 4-letter network did also, I'm making sure I have this right as well, but the 4-letter network did also bump the Sky up quite a bit in their power rankings. Last week, the Chicago Sky came in at 11th overall in the WNBA power rankings. According to ESPN, they have moved up to 7. When you go 2-0, that helps. It also helps that there are some other teams struggling, yes, but Man, Angel Reese's week last week, 41 points, 34 rebounds in 2 games. And then Camila Cardoso also showing some good things there, 25 points, 21 rebounds. She's starting to come into her own. Kennedy Carter got a little scary there in the game against the Fever on Sunday. It looked like she sustained a little bit of an injury, but she was able to stay in, and she put up 42 points last week as well. So some good things for the Sky overall. They move up 4 spots on the power rankings to 7th overall. So some good things with the Sky. Obviously going to be a much, much, much tougher week this week. Hosting Vegas. Yeah, Vegas is not quite as powerful as they've been, but there's, you're still playing the defending champs. And anytime you're taking on the defending champs, that things are going to be interesting. They are coming in on a 2-game winning streak, though they are just 500 in their last 10 games. They do not. Yeah, that's correct. The Aces do not play another game before Thursday as well. So both teams will be very well rested. And then, of course, the huge one, playing the Minnesota Lynx this coming Sunday, winners of 7 out of their last 10. Minnesota this week, besides coming to Chicago on Sunday, they play New York in a huge game tomorrow night. That could be a WNBA finals preview right there between the Lynx and the Liberty tomorrow night, 7:00 Central Time in New York. They will also then play Dallas on Thursday before coming to Chicago. So they've got 3 games this week. They might be a little tired coming in. We can only hope. But we will see what comes of the Sky and what we're thinking of them next week. But we can now officially declare it. They have a rivalry with Indiana, and I love seeing it. So we know that the Sky had a good week last week. How about the baseball teams in town? Well, we got a new statue unveiled. That was great. We also had a new contender for, does this team really understand the rules for the game that they're playing? We will talk baseball next here on IE Sports Radio. Should we start with the Cubs or should we start with the Sox? If you're listening live, pop into the chat room and tell me which team we'll start with, and we'll see which one we want to go with. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We will be right back after this.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
What's up, New York? This is Ricky K coming at you at the NY State of Sports, a new show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Listen to me every Thursday afternoon as we bring you the latest takes on the Yankees, Mets, Jets, Giants, Knicks, Nets, Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. Plus, you get some college hoops and what's the local sports events going on in the area. It's a state that never sleeps, so why not get the opinions and sports takes that never sleep? Again, every Thursday, 2 p.m. to the NY State of Sports. We'll see you then.
And welcome back on into Chi-Town Weekly, everyone. Adam Karnick here with you, breaking down everything in the best sports city in the U.S. And before we dive back into the Chicago talk, for those that don't know, I am also the co-host of The Neutral Zone here on IE Sports Radio. We're going to have a huge show tomorrow night because going on right now in the Stanley Cup Final, there's a little thing called Game 7 going on between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. I am missing Game 7. The start of Game 7 to do this show. That is my dedication to my love of Chicago sports. Up and shapes up when we're done here tonight, but doing a little bit of double duty tonight, keeping my eye on the Stanley Cup Final while also talking all wonderful things Chicago here on IE Sports Radio. And we wanted to talk baseball this segment, and the votes were tallied during the break. We are going to start off with the Cubs. We're going to talk some Cubs and some Sox. Both teams having kind of rough weekends. Go figure. That's kind of been both teams' modus operandi lately, hasn't it been? Well, the Cubs. I'm sporting my Cubs gear. I'm sporting my Cubs gear tonight, Drewski. I do not have again before I ever went to a Cubs game. I went to my first professional baseball game. I was probably 7-ish or so. Went to White Sox Royals in the mid 90s. So got to see Frank Thomas, got to see Ray Durham playing second base. I know the Sox won, and I know that there were several home runs hit. That was at, it was referred to as New Comiskey at the time. That was well before the guaranteed rate field days. Though the thing I remember most distinctly about that first game was the fact that there was a multi-hour rain delay to start it. That was, what do we do during a rain delay? So I root for, I appreciate both sides of town for baseball. I have nothing against the Sox, but then going to school all of a half hour from Wrigley Field for living that close to Wrigley Field for 5 years, because I didn't have firm, hard and fast roots with the White Sox. You pretty much, if you don't come in Cubs land there for 5 years. Good. As I see, we're having a little bit of connectivity issues. We'll see if we can't clear that up. I do apologize for that. We'll see if we can clear that up here a little bit. So the Cubs will start with the good. Obviously, the good from over the weekend was Ryne Sandberg getting a statue unveiled yesterday. And everybody in attendance for that, and Bob Costas being there on the 40th anniversary of the Sandberg game, the classic game from 1984 where it was the NBC baseball game of the week on Saturday afternoon, and it was Cubs Cardinals, and you had the Cubs overcoming a 7-1 deficit and a 9-3 deficit with Sandberg hitting the game tying home run in the 9th inning, and then the go-ahead home run in the 10th inning as part of a 5-for-6 day with 7 RBIs. So you get to celebrate and relive those. And baseball as a sport is so good at allowing those kind of events to happen and really allowing that to weave into the story of the individual game that you're playing, really getting to tell the history and relive that and all those things. And the Cubs are so very, very good at doing that, they've got a lot of practice with that, because unfortunately for so many years, history was all they had to celebrate. You didn't have good things on the field to be celebrating. So of course they've had practice of that as a team, and they've gotten very, very good at it. So that was the fun. That was the enjoyable, coming off of a series win over the Giants. And you thought, all right, they've got some momentum. Now the Mets coming into town, the Mets had been playing very well lately. Ralph Calise, Ryan Sandberg, one of his favorites growing up as a kid. Yeah, Rhino was just a Cubs legend. One of those third basemen that it's just he's what you want to be when you grow up and you're watching baseball and enjoying baseball. So it's easy to get into that. And seeing him also celebrate that, he's beating cancer at the moment, and being able to celebrate that too. That's always a huge accomplishment and good things there for him and the family. So to get to enjoy moments like yesterday were huge and important. But then you had the games. Now, had I told you before the weekend, they're going to have Shota Imanaga, Jameson Taillon, and Javier Asad on the bump against the Mets, all right, I could see taking 2 out of 3. And as a bonus, the bats came to life against the Giants. They scored 8 runs on Wednesday against the Giants. That was the most runs they'd scored in over a month in a single game. Hey, the bats have come to life. That last week, that was our big gripe with the Cubs, was the bats were totally dead. There was just nothing going on with the bats at all offensively in the game. But then the pitching winds up failing you. Shota Imanaga had, if not his worst game as a pro, one of his worst games as a pro on Friday. And the ironic thing was, with my wife and I coming into town for the weekend, we had briefly, not terribly seriously, but briefly discussed, hey, we'll have some time. Do we want to go? Nah, we got other things that we'd like to do with the weekend. It'll be getting to where we need to be. It'll be closer than we like. Nah, we'll find another time. We listened to it though on our way in, and man, it was like the first thing I thought when the game got going. It was, oh, well, good thing we didn't, because good thing we didn't come to this one. Imanaga, a tough outing. And it started right out of the gate with a 3-run homer in the first inning. It was kind of, well, yeah, here we go. This one may not go our way. Imanaga, just 3 innings, 10 runs on 11 hits, just 3 punch outs and a walk in the game on Friday. And it was just frustrating. It's you finally get the offense going, and now your ace lets you down. And they brought up the point on the radio broadcast, and it's, I hope it's not a harbinger of things to come, but I fear that it is. This was the second time that the Mets saw Shota. We're now entering the summer where Wrigley can be a horrifying place to be a pitcher in the summer months, especially if you're a fly ball pitcher. And Shota's a guy that if he's not striking you out, you're hitting fly balls. I fear that what we saw from Shota on Friday might be a little bit more regular. Hopefully not to this degree, but it could become, I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot more 7-8 innings where he's only given up a earned run and is, striking out 8 or 9 guys. I hope that we do. Don't get me wrong. I don't think his stuff has gotten any worse. I just think major league hitting combined with pitching at Wrigley Field, unfortunately, may catch up to him a little bit here. You did have then on Saturday, you had a terrific outing from Jameson Taillon. You did have that performance then on Saturday as the Cubs won 8-1, and Taillon going seven innings, just the 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts, really showing things up and really picking up the team there as a pitcher, as an experienced veteran pitcher can do for you. And then you have then you have Rhino night. You have Ryne Sandberg statue night. Surely, if there's going to be a game where the energy is going to be high and the team is going to feel like if there's any time to show up and have a big night, this is the night. And then Javier Asad struggles on Sunday. The Cubs still need more offense. Don't get me wrong. That is still the major problem with the Cubs, is the lack of consistent offense, coupled with an overtaxed bullpen that just does not have guys that you can rely upon to work, to come out and eat up innings and get guys for you. But now you're having problems in the rotation too. It has become summer at Wrigley, and now your starting rotation is struggling. I wonder, this is starting to feel like it could be a very, very long summer up on the north side. We've talked already on prior episodes, and if you're wondering, hey, where do I hear some of those conversations? Spreaker.com, Gio7, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically wherever you find podcasts, just check it out. And I fear that this could be a very, very long, very disappointing summer up at Wrigley. And it's not like we can just turn our attention to the other side of town and say, well, at least we've got some entertaining baseball going on the south side. We have entertaining things going on if you're not a Sox fan. But it is, we saw another example in Detroit of, do these guys actually know baseball? Friday night, Paul DeJong gets doubled off of first with 1 out on what should have just been a routine fly out to center. And still DeJong is busting his hump around second and is 3/4 of the way to third. And then it dawns on him, oh yeah, that was only the second out. Now, to his credit, he started trying to make his way back to first. He didn't give up on the play, but yeah, come on. This is the kind of stuff that Pedro was supposed to fix. And yes, Ralph, I am very disgusted about Chicago baseball. I wish that I had a team right now that could at least be providing some joy. Now, to be fair, as Larry's having some fun in the chat room and welcoming White Sox fans into Raiderville, here's the difference. Here's the difference, though, Larry. White Sox fans knew this was coming. Maybe not to the degree, but everybody knew that this season was going to be an unmitigated disaster. It was just simply going to be how big of a disaster. And it has been a disaster of a season. You know, nobody had expectations for this club going in, and still the White Sox have failed to meet them. That's been kind of the spectacular part and the amazing part. The other amazing part through now is Pedro, of course, has, of course, insisted that he's not thinking about where, you know, he's not concerned about his future. He's got a job to do. Of course, you would expect that of any manager, any head coach. When you're in the season, you can't worry about, you can't worry about tomorrow. You've got a job to do today. What has been surprising is how do I best want to say this? The votes of confidence that the organization has been giving Grifol through Bob Nightingale. Now, we know that Bob Nightingale has his eyes and his ears on the front office, that he has inside intel that is reliable and good. We can speculate where it is. Oh, Jerry Reinsdorf. Sorry, I had something in my throat there. Of where he gets a lot of his information, because it winds up being very good a lot of the time. But up until this weekend, the White Sox haven't been thinking at all about moving on from Grifol. And then all of a sudden, this weekend, word comes out that the Sox might be thinking about moving on. That Nightingale was reporting that they've had some internal discussions and they have a name internally that they like. And oh, what a name. And I mean, I see that, and all right, I can be a simple man sometimes. A well-written headline, even if I know that it's clickbait, at least if you put forth some effort to me and you're not making it brutally obvious that it's clickbait, sure, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to read it. I will allow myself to be sucked in. So, for example, new report reveals White Sox have a name in mind for new manager in 2025. All right, NBC Sports Chicago, job well done. Kudos to you. You're darn right. I'm going to click on that headline and I'm going to read it, as opposed to click here for surprising name in White Sox managerial search. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. You are clearly just looking for clicks. I'm not going. You've got to do better than that. You've got to do better than that. I'm sorry. All right, now with our journalism discussion, I promise that'll be the end of our journalism 101 session for tonight. So Nightingale reports over the weekend that they have a new name. They have somebody internally that they've had that Chris Getz and company have discussed for replacing Pedro Grifol. But get this, it's Skip Schumacher, the current manager of the Miami Marlins. Now, why is that a gigantic eye roll in my mind? The White Sox are the worst team in baseball. The Marlins are next. The Marlins are 26-50. Why do you want Skip Schumacher? Why? But then Nightingale answers the question. It's because Schumacher, who's 44 years old and a former high round draft pick in the MLB, he had, I'm gonna read this verbatim out of this was now this is from NBC Sports Chicago. This is not from Nightingale, but it paints the picture the same way. Quote, the former 5th round pick in the 2001 MLB entry draft played 11 seasons in the majors. Predominantly, Schumacher played the first 8 seasons of his career with the Cardinals under Tony La Russa. And Tony La Russa is, of course, special advisor to Jerry Reinsdorf, owner of the White Sox. Tony La Russa is calling the shots for the White Sox. Do the White Sox actually know baseball? Why? Why is Tony La Russa being allowed to make these decisions? I get it, Jerry. I get it, Jerry. You feel bad that you fired the guy 40 years ago and it was a mistake. You've made a lot of other mistakes between now and then, and I don't see you in a hurry to fix those. Why this one? Why is this one the one that you keep demanding on fixing? The game passed Tony by 15 years ago. Move on. Why? I got no problems with you wanting to move on from Pedro. I loved believe me, I loved the story when they hired Pedro. Oh my gosh. It hit me right here. It got me 1,000% in the feels. I loved the story when they hired him. A baseball lifer who decided that while he was doing well in front office work, his passion lay in being a coach and being in with the players, and asked permission of his family to pursue this, and having his family his daughters tell him how you always told us to follow our dreams. How selfish could we be if we wouldn't ask you and support you to do the same thing? It was just, oh my gosh, just wow. 1,000% got me in the feels on that one. It was a great story. It hasn't worked out. Now, we can argue about the team around him, but Pedro's made enough problems of his own. But why are you settling? Why settle for the guy who's only second worst because your team exists? You know, if it weren't for you, the Marlins would be the worst team. Why is that your goal? Strive to be better. The White Sox are hosting the Dodgers starting this week. Shohei Ohtani is in town. The best baseball player playing the game today is in your stadium. And I'm reminded of the fact that Jerry Reinsdorf laughed off the possibility of pursuing Ohtani this offseason. Thought it was ridiculous to even bring it up. Laughingly told reporters, well, I promise you we won't be entering any Shohei sweepstakes. Why are you settling for You're not even achieving mediocrity right now, Jerry. Why are you settling for terrible? You want to win another one of these before you go? You want to win another World Series before you punch that clock for the last time? You're going to have to open up the purse strings, and I know that's hard for you to do. But B, you're going to have to actually bring in some talent. And that means not settling for a guy who's only not the worst because the guy you currently have is worse than him. Skip Schumacher, my goodness. We're not going to have the worst manager in baseball. We're going to have the second worst. Yippee. At this rate, it's going to take 60 years for you to even be thinking about a World Series again. If it takes you 2 years to get rid of a bad manager. Do the White Sox actually know baseball? At this point, I have to answer that question with no. They don't. They do not know baseball. All right. From one Reinsdorf disaster to another, we are going to take a quick break. And on the flip side, the Bulls have been the very definition of mediocrity the last couple of seasons. But Acme Incorporated, Arturas Karnisovas, promised that change would be coming. And last week, we saw the start of that change. How did he do, and what does it mean next? We will dissect the Bulls for a few minutes here. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode. That's right. You can catch Zach and myself tomorrow night breaking down Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. The show will kick off at 8 o'clock Central Time tomorrow night. At the end of one, the Panthers and the Oilers are tied at 1 apiece. I got no problems with overtime in a Game 7, especially since I don't have I don't have a horse in the race. I could just sit back and enjoy this game. You know, when the Blackhawks were in these do or die game sevens, my heart would be going 10,000 miles a minute. I literally, it would feel like I was getting off a treadmill at the end of some of those games. Tonight, I could just sit back and just enjoy the roller coaster that is game seven. The two best words in sports, game seven, game seven. Love it. Anyway, here on Chi-Town Weekly, with you here for just a couple of more minutes before we wrap things up and we turn things over to Taryn Rodriguez of Set Point, breaking down everything happening in the wonderful world of volleyball. I did want to discuss the Chicago Bulls. We heard from Karnisovitz at the end of last season that he understood that changes needed to be made, that changes needed to happen in order for this team to get better. You couldn't just run it back for a third year in a row and expect something different to happen. And we finally saw evidence of that last week when Alex Caruso got traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Caruso, of course, he's been a fan favorite in his 2 years in Chicago. He's been a fun guy to watch, an easy guy for the fans to love. Energy, hard worker. You know that he knows he can't just get by on his skill alone, that he's got to be a maximum effort guy. So he gives it every single night that he's out on the floor. An easy guy for the fans to fall in love with, and a good player on the team, somebody that worked to hone his craft, got better at shooting threes last year, was a key part of the team, trying to help fill the void of Lonzo Ball just simply not being there anymore. But in order to get something, you've got to give up something. And Alex Caruso is a desirable piece. There were talks at the trade deadline this past season that Caruso might get moved and the Bulls might get as many as 2 protected first-round picks for Alex Caruso. Those are some of the rumors flying around. Instead, they hold on to him. They try to get one last gasp effort out of all these guys. And instead, they wind up moving him this offseason. And what do the Bulls wind up getting? They wind up getting from Oklahoma City, officially listed as a shooting guard, though their interest in him is absolutely as a point guard and as a floor general, in that Lonzo Ball mode. Josh Giddey from the Oklahoma City Thunder. So straight up a guard for a guard. And I posed the question, and I what can I say? I'm a dad. I have 2 kids. Bad puns are just part of the territory. So are we giddy about Josh? Well, I'm sorry. That's not even worth the rim shot. I apologize, but it's one of those things. It's when you're sitting here doing this, you got to have some fun with yourself. You got to just, you got to be able to laugh. You got to be able to laugh. And if I'm the only one laughing, well, okay, fine. it's all good. It's all good. Pluses for Josh Giddey. First of all, he's significantly younger. He is 21. He will turn 22 just before the season starts. And I mean just before the season starts. And I believe his birthday is October 2nd. I know it's in October. So he will be a young 22-year-old when the season starts. This is a Bulls team that needs an injection of youth. Absolutely. Good evening, Marcus Los Great. Salute to you, sir. So you need to have an infusion of youth. And with the Bulls not having very much in the way of draft capital, being able to trade for some younger guys, that's huge. Giddey was a first-round pick of the Oklahoma City, and not just a first-round pick, he was a top 10 pick. He was the 6th overall selection by the Thunder. And you listen to what their executives had to say after the trade went down. He was somebody that they thought highly of. They regarded Giddey highly still, even after spending 3 seasons with the team. He still was somebody that they wanted to fit into their overall plans for the team. So you're getting, you're not just getting somebody off the scrap heap here in this move. You're also getting somebody that saw improvement in his 3-point shooting in his 3 seasons with Oklahoma City. He started off his rookie season. He was barely making 25%. I'm pulling up the exact numbers here as I'm doing this. So I want to make sure that I'm getting the numbers correctly here. So bear with me as I'm pulling up the exact numbers. But I know that he was barely over 25% in his rookie season. And he improved on that. He was 26% from 3 as a rookie, and then 32.5%, and then 33.7% from 3 this past season. So you saw improvement in the 3-point play. He's also somebody that absolutely can command the floor. We saw Kobe White be the floor general, but that's not the way you use Kobe White correctly. He is really at his best when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, when you allow him to use space, get to his spot, catch and fire. That's what Kobe White can do best for you. So having Giddey can be that floor general for you. On the flip side, though, the downside, he's in the final year of his rookie deal. You have to make a decision right now on whether or not you're going to re-sign him. If the Bulls do not sign Giddey to an extension by the time this regular season starts, Giddey will be a restricted free agent at the end of the season. Now, it's a restricted free agent, so you've got, you have some protections in place there, but still, you're still talking about trading for a guy, and you might only get a season out of him. You've got to make a decision now on what he might be worth to you, and you're already so very close to the luxury tax as the Bulls, as close as the Bulls are. So you've got a tough decision to make there. This is a guy that in Giddey, that in the playoffs with the Thunder, the Mavericks were okay with Giddey being the guy taking the last shot. When they were designing their defense, they were making sure that if Giddey beats us, okay, fine, we'll consider that a win. So you've got to work on some things there with him offensively. And then while Giddey while he improved in his 3-point shot percentages, he didn't take a ton of them. He'd only make about 1 a game. So you've got, so he's only taking maybe 3 threes a game. So you've got, is that because that's just all the more he can make? Is that just because in Oklahoma City they had other guys there that you rather the offense was running through? Or is that just what he is? So you've got some things that you need to figure out. Did they maximize their value in Alex Caruso? I don't know. I don't know. When, it's one thing when you say you might get 2 first-round picks, and then instead you wind up with another guard on what's already kind of a guard-heavy team. I mean, you've got Kobe White. You've still got Ayo Dosunmu. Lonzo Ball says he's trying to come back still. You just drafted, Dylan Terry not that long ago. You've kind of got a guard-heavy team already, and now you've got another one. Time will tell. We will see how this trade works out for the Bulls, but at least it's not going to be the same team being run back again by the Acme Corporation. We are at least seeing a rebuilding project over on the West Side. That is going to do it for our show here tonight. Huge shout out and thank you again to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. You can find them at planetjerky.net. Mention that you heard from this show, Chi-Town Weekly, and you'll get a free bag of jerky. I would recommend the Volcanic Jalapeno. Also find them on Instagram at Planet Jerky or just go to the website planetjerky.net. Also, shout out and thank you to our other sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You can them on Instagram at SealTheDeal_Wax Seals or on Facebook, SealTheDeal_Wax Stamps. You can also find them on our website, iesportsradio.com. That's where you'll find information on all shows, the blog, information about our hosts, the shop. Anything you could want to know about the sports world is right there for the taking for you at iesportsradio.com. Huge shout out and thank you to Larry B., producer extraordinaire and czar and overlord of all things IE Sports Radio. Thank you, good sir. Thank you also to everybody that was hanging out in the chat room and listening along with us here tonight. Terry Rodriguez, Drewski, Ralph Calise, Jen B, Marcus Lowe Straight, Kathy Karnick. Thank you to everybody listening and chiming along in the chat. Thank you to everybody that listened later on as a podcast, Spreaker.com or iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me, whether this was your first show or this was your 185th show. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. Coming up next, it is Taryn Rodriguez and Set Point breaking down all things in world volleyball. Next week, we will get caught up again in all things Sky, all things baseball. We'll see what else is on the horizon. For IE Sports Radio, I am Adam Karnick. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you next time.